Welcome everybody. It's 5:30 p.m. in Sydney, so I declare the 2014 Annual General Meeting of the Avant Mutual Group Limited open. I note that we have a quorum, as there are more than 20 required members present in person or by proxy in the various offices. And I also note that this meeting is linked by video and telephone to our interstate offices, so members are able to watch the AGM either from our interstate offices and indeed via webcast from their own facilities. So I welcome you all to the 2014 AGM of the Avant Mutual Group Limited. It's my first AGM as Chair of the Avant Mutual, and Avant and its predecessor organisations really have been part of my life and my bone marrow in my 40 years since I started my involvement with a medical career. And it's a great honour and privilege to have been appointed as the chair of this fine company and to speak to you in that capacity. I also ask you to show some forbearance with my learning and trainer wheels this evening. I'd like to extend a special welcome tonight to the current voting member directors of the Avant Mutual Board and also to the non-member directors of the board, and in particular to Mr Andrew Balderman, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Avant Mutual Group. It's Andrew's second AGM in his role at Avant. I'd particularly like to take the opportunity to welcome the immediate past chair of Avant Mutual, Professor Stuart Boland, who retired as chair in June this year, having held the position of the chair of Avant Mutual and its predecessor organisation, UMP, since 2003, and welcome Stuart. During Stuart's time as chair, and many of you will know this, but I think it's worthy of note, Avant emerged strongly from the very precarious times of the medical indemnity crisis, now just over 10 years ago, and completed a successful integration with MDAV and also completed the acquisition of the Doctors' Health Fund. He's largely responsible, along with the senior management team and the board team here at Avant, for the strong financial position that Avant is currently in, and has left us with a highly capable board and senior management team. Stuart's leadership contribution to Avant and to the medical defence industry in general and more broadly cannot be overstated. I'd like to place on the record the board's appreciation for Stuart's outstanding contribution and leadership. I also welcome the current and past chairs of Avant Insurance Limited, Peter Paulson and Vin Tozer, who join us today in the Melbourne office, and welcome to Peter and Vin. Finally, I'd like to welcome in Sydney our external auditor, Mr Scott Ferguson, Ms Deborah Pittman and Mr Neil Keane of the Election Consulting Group. Where are you, Neil and Deborah? Over there. Who've assisted us with the conduct of the election of voting member directors. And our scrutineer for the election of voting member directors, Ernst & Young, represented tonight by David Hodges. We have received a number of apologies. I don't intend to read them out, however they will be recorded in the minutes. In terms of standing orders, I confirm that the standing orders which were approved by members at the 2008 AGM and which set out the procedural rules for the meeting are available for inspection at each of the officers participating in this meeting should anybody wish to avail themselves of that opportunity. The first order of business is to review the minutes of the 2013 AGM, and I'd like to deal with those minutes at this point. These are also available for inspection at each of the officers participating in this meeting. May I have a motion that the minutes of the annual general meeting for 2013 be adopted as a true record of the meeting? Thank you, Dr Satchwell. And the seconder? Dr Clancy in Brisbane, I think. Correct? Yes. I declare the motion carried. The only formal business of the meeting is the receipt and consideration of financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2014. There'll be an opportunity for questions and comments in relation to the financial statements and also in any items of general business that are appropriate for this forum. We will also, of course, announce the results of the 2014 voting member director election. But before we do that, I'd just like to make a few remarks which will reflect the comments that you'll see in the annual report. Avant exists for its members, and in particular to defend, advise and support them while they carry out their important work of providing health services to our communities. And I need to remind everyone here that that often occurs over an extended career in clinical and other service in health that may go on for 50 years or more. Over 2013-14, we've sought to provide or to continue to provide the highest possible level of support for members facing civil litigation, regulatory notification and employment disputes, whilst investing heavily, as is appropriate in 2014, in prevention and education activities, which hopefully assist our members to not find themselves in those other difficult situations. The 2013-14 year was a strong growth year for Avant. We achieved excellent financial results, closing the year with $947 million in net assets, which represents a 12.7% increase from the previous year's amount of $840 million. This result means that members will once again enjoy an up to 16.5% reduction in their next annual premium via our loyalty reward program. And this year the board and management have also worked hard to enable the financial success of the company to be shared with members, and in August launched the retirement reward plan, which is a way of ensuring that our long-serving members also benefit from the accrued financial success of the organisation. Excellent financial results. Hearing myself an echo. We've made a notional contribution of $300 million to establish that retirement reward plan and are hopeful of making additional notional contributions annually in the future. This is a first. This particular program is a first for an Australian medical defence organisation, and I believe it's a very significant milestone for Avant and a demonstration of the organisation's focus on delivering benefits to members in the long term. In terms of our membership, this has increased this year to 64,000 healthcare practitioners and students, a 6.7% increase over the last year. And we represent over 50% of Australian medical practitioners, which gives us obviously a size and scale to draw on our unequalled experience and insight when defending our members. We have the largest in-house legal team of any medical defence organisation, and their work is incredibly highly regarded, as is the contribution of the claims teams and our medical advisors. We have a 24-hour-a-day medico-legal advice service, and that service received more than 14,000 calls from members, an increase of 16% from last year. And in terms of the evaluation of that service from our members, which we conduct regularly, they regard it very highly. They get the sort of advice and support that they need. We've continued our emphasis on expanding and improving our education and increased the amount of resources available through our Risk IQ portal, in keeping with our philosophy of prevention of problems rather than waiting for problems to arise. The Doctors' Health Fund finished the year with 11,500 policy holders, an increase of 8.3% on the previous year. And it's good to see that 55% of new members were doctors under the age of 35, which shows that our policies are relevant to members at all stages of their career. We continue to ensure that Avant's members' concerns are heard by governments and regulators, and we supported Queensland members during their contract negotiations with Queensland Health, and are currently taking an active role in the review of the National Registration Accreditation Scheme. I've only had a few minutes to outline some of the achievements of the year, but I hope that you get a sense that strong growth and progress is being made across the business, and we plan to continue that. Finally, I'd like to thank my fellow board members, all those members who so generously give their time, and there are many, to our various committees, and to all of the management and staff at Avant who've contributed to these impressive results. We now come to the formal business of the AGM as set out in the notice of meeting that was sent to members. I propose to allow time for members in attendance to ask questions or to make comments that are appropriate for this forum. But I would ask that members identify themselves and confine themselves to one question or comment and to a maximum of 5 minutes. Prior to that, though, we'll deal with item 1 on the agenda, which is to receive and consider the financial statements and the reports for the year ended 30th of June 2014. And our Chief Financial Officer, Scott Pearson, and External Auditor, Scott Ferguson of PwC, are present here in Sydney to answer any questions in relation to the financial statements. Can I at this point take any questions or comments in relation to those financial statements directed to myself, to Mr Pearson or Mr Ferguson from members in any office? If there are no questions, may I have a motion that the financial statements and reports be received and considered? Penny Brown, Dr Penny Brown proposed, and David Pak Chung seconding, and I declare the motion carried. There are no items of general business included in the notice of meeting that's been circulated. However, if any member wishes to raise a question or to make a comment appropriate to this forum, this is now the opportunity to do so. Again, I ask members to first identify themselves, and we will go around state by state so that everybody gets an opportunity. And I'd also ask members to confine themselves to one comment and to a maximum of 5 minutes. So, are there any questions or comments from members, firstly in the Sydney office? Professor Boland.
Thank you, Simon, for your generous welcome a few minutes ago, but I'd like to take the opportunity to make a statement about something that troubles me a little. One of the major issues facing member-based organisations across Australia is to find an acceptable way within their constitutions and democratic processes where any member can and is encouraged to stand for a board position, is to meet the common sense notion and contemporary good governance dictate that a board is required to be composed of directors who will collectively have the skills, experience and expertise to effectively govern and direct the organisation. The chaos experienced by the NRMA some years ago tragically illustrates the problems that can be the outcome associated with such processes. And because of the unprecedented and continuing success of Avant this last financial year, which must now make it the biggest, most complicated, and hence potentially vulnerable doctor-owned organisation in the Southern Hemisphere, there is an ever-increasing need for maximising the individual and collective skill sets of member directors, independent directors and management. Under these circumstances, I'd like to take the opportunity to express my rapidly increasing concern that the process to elect member directors of Avant may no longer have the capacity to achieve this result, hence to secure the best interests of the organisation. Therefore, I believe that whatever the results of the election today, it should be the last held under the present rules. Mr Chairman, I was proposing to present a paper today in which I attempted to make the case in full for urgent change in the way directors are appointed to the board of Avant, rather than wait for a whole industry response in member-based organisation, which I believe inevitably will follow in the next couple of years. However, because of time constraints, and because I do not want to say anything today, even though unintended, that potentially may prickle sensitivities associated with the current election, the result of which is to be announced in a few minutes. Therefore, I propose to leave the paper I prepared with you today, Mr Chairman, with the plea it will be circulated and discussed widely within the organisation, and that the board urgently looks at the issue, puts any recommendations for change to the members for approval in time for implementation before the next election. To conclude, it is a privilege of membership to vote in and to stand for election as a member director, and all in the organisation, including potential candidates, need to be aware of the necessary blend of expertise, skills and personal attributes a member director must bring to the mutual board in order to properly govern and direct the organisation by exercising effective oversight over the whole group, including its regulated insurance companies, that is Avant Insurance Limited, regulated by the Australian Prudential Regulatory Authority, and the Doctors' Health Fund, regulated by the Private Health Insurance Association Council. Also to assist in the development and in the sign-off of appropriate business strategy, and to provide continuity of corporate knowledge and awareness of membership aspirations. It is a no-brainer, at least to me, that the rules underpinning the process must be specifically geared to achieve this goal, as anything less leaves the mutual board in the untenable position of holding itself to a lesser standard than it expects of the independent directors and management. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, that comment, Professor Boland, and we look forward to receiving your full paper. Without commenting specifically, I think you raised some important points. The underlying principle of mutuality and the ability of any doctor to put, or member to put themselves forward for the board is one that I don't think any of us wish to see challenged. But we need to reconcile that with what I think is the contemporary view on excellent governance, which is where we make sure that people are aware of the skill sets that are required, and we have a job, I think, to inform and to make clear to people which are those skills. So thank you for that, and we'll certainly keep you, but also the general membership, informed of any changes in that process. The nominations committee, you may be aware, has been looking at that very issue in terms of board renewal for some months now. Thank you. Are there any other matters of general business from the Sydney office, or the New South Wales office, I should say? If not, are there any questions or comments from members in the Melbourne office?
No, nothing from here, thank you.
No, nothing from Melbourne. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from members in the Brisbane office? Nothing? It sounds like that somebody's trying to speak there, but I'm not hearing anything. You can't hear us? Is that clearer now? We've lost our static. Can I ask you then, are there any questions or statements from the Brisbane office?
No, we've lost audio with Brisbane.
We've lost audio, I'm afraid, at this stage. We'll come back. Any questions or comments from members in the Adelaide office?
Thank you.
No, thank you. And finally, any questions or comments from members in our Perth office?
Nothing from Perth, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Have we re-established audio with Brisbane at this stage?
Yes, we can hear you, thank you. It's a little better now. Steve, can you make a comment?
Yes, Steve?
Thank you very much. I do apologise for the background noise, but you've got a house installed.
Right.
The window. Look, very much thank you for the strategic meeting. Actually, I had to understand the doors. My colleagues, critical about government and appropriate selection direction. But the main reason I wanted to speak is, as I did it past week with the AMA, having observed that we're at a time in Australia when we do need to, a number of things come together. With a reform, a review of our national registration system, where the public want to make sure that the doctors that are treating them are actually properly educated, properly informed, and making the right decisions. We've got insurance, and it's a very good example of one that would like to preempt problems by making sure that we do treat people appropriately as well. And we've got colleges that are of a mind in sharing information much more about what they do and the quality of the work that's happening in this country. And we also have it occurs at a time when being chairman of VICA, I observed that we are now able to measure so many more things. We now have an individual health identifiers for our population. We have individual doctor identifiers, we have organisation identifiers, and we've also got terminology that we can now share. So we are going to a doctor in this country, so that GP, so when a doctor describes a condition, that can be transmitted to another doctor, but indeed to an insurer or to the patient. So we're all talking the same language. I think it's a huge opportunity for all those organisations to work together to look at how we deliver health better in this country. And there's a win-win for a number of people. It's a win for the public to get better outcomes. It's a win for insurers because the quality of care is better and minimises risk for doctors being patients. And I think there's a win for payers as well because we simply can't afford to continue to deliver care in the same way. And we do need to make sure that we participate in structural changes in our health system to make sure that we maximise the efficiency of the care we deliver. So it's an exciting time to be part of any of the large organisations, and I implore us all to work together.
Thank you, Steve. I think we heard most of that, and I hope others in the other state offices do. And it appears to me that the two main points that you were making, and I agree with completely, are firstly that we live in times where the manner in which we practice and deliver services are changing and evolving, and we have to accept that and make sure that we evolve our industry. And secondly, that we have to make sure that we work collaboratively with all of the other stakeholders in the space. I hope that's a reasonable summary of the comments that you made, and I certainly endorse them, so thank you for that. It's now time to turn to the final item on the business agenda, which is the election of voting member directors. I confirm that the election of voting member directors of Avant Mutual has been conducted pursuant to the procedure for election adopted by the Avant Mutual Board. And this year, Election Consulting Group again assisted us in the postal and online voting process, and thank you again for that work. And Ernst & Young, of course, have acted as scrutineers. We thank you all for your assistance. Voting in this particular election closed at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday the 18th of November. This year, Dr Jonathan Burden and Dr Jan Dudley will retire at the end of this meeting, meaning that there are two positions to be filled on the board at this election. Dr Burden and Dr Dudley are both standing for re-election. The geographical requirements of the Avant Mutual Constitution require that at least one, but no more than 3 voting member directors must be resident in each of Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland. And this means that this year only one candidate from Victoria may be appointed, as there are already 2 voting member directors from Victoria serving on the board. Each of the voting member directors will be appointed for a 3-year term. At this time, I'd ask our scrutineer, Mr David Hodges from Ernst & Young, to confirm that the election and the count have been conducted in accordance with the relevant rules.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I can confirm that based upon our procedures, the voting and processes have been in accordance with the rules.
Thank you very much. This year we had 9 voting members who put themselves forward as candidates, and I thank all of our candidates for doing so. This year, 3,569 votes were cast to exercise the important right to elect mutual board members. I've been provided with a report of the outcome of the election by Suzanne Barron, our Group Company Secretary. The number of votes received by each candidate in order of appearance on the ballot paper were as follows. Dr Jan Dudley from New South Wales, 866 votes. Dr Mark Colson from Victoria, 301 vote. Dr Danny Berrin from New South Wales, 135 votes. Dr Martin Bailey from New South Wales, 201 vote. Dr Daniel Heredia from Western Australia, 130 votes. Dr Steve Hambleton from Queensland, 785 votes. Dr Laurie Wolf from Victoria, 163 votes. Dr Jonathan Burden from Victoria, 729 votes. And Dr Hung Nguyen from Victoria, 259 votes. Accordingly, I declare that the following members have been duly elected as directors of the Avant Mutual Group Limited. Dr Jan Dudley from New South Wales and Dr Steve Hambleton from Queensland. I congratulate Dr Dudley and Dr Hambleton, and I sincerely thank each of the candidates for their nomination and for their continuing support of Avant. These appointments will see a long-serving director, Dr Jonathan Burden, indeed our longest-serving director, retire from Avant's board. I'd like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to Jonathan for his significant contribution, not only to Avant, but to the medical indemnity industry here in Australia. Many of you would know that Jonathan was previously the president of MDA Victoria and was instrumental in steering us through the merger between UMP and MDAV. He's been a director since Avant, since the inception of Avant after the merger since 2007, and has made an invaluable contribution to this organisation during that time. And Jonathan's long career in medical indemnity is a testament to his outstanding commitment. Jonathan's also enjoyed a distinguished clinical career as a respiratory physician, and earlier this year was fittingly recognised in the Queen's Birthday Honours List in recognition of his service to respiratory medicine as a clinician and researcher. I know, Jonathan, that my fellow directors and I have benefited greatly from your sharing of your generous sharing of your experience, wisdom and expertise, and we thank you for your significant contribution for many years on the Avant Mutual Board. Thank you. It remains for me now simply to formally declare this meeting closed, and I invite you all to join us for refreshments. Thank you very much for your attendance and for your participation, and again for your forbearance for my first AGM. Thank you.